There was a time when my life felt stuck. Every day felt the same. My dreams felt too far away, and deep down I knew I was capable of more. The problem wasn't my potential, it was my habits. The truth is, your habits write the story of your future. If you change your habits, you change your life. And today, I want to share with you the 10 simple habits that took my life from ordinary to unrecognizable. There was a time when my mornings controlled me instead of me controlling them. The alarm would go off, I would hit snooze 3 or 4 times, and by the time I actually dragged myself out of bed, I was already behind. My mind was flooded with stress, with everything I didn't do yesterday and everything I had to do today. And like most people, I reached for my phone, scrolled through notifications, saw the news, saw other people's lives, and felt this wave of anxiety and comparison before I even brushed my teeth. That was my pattern for years, and it was quietly destroying my energy, my focus, and my confidence. Then one day, I asked myself a simple but uncomfortable question: how can I expect my life to change if I start every single day the exact same way? That question was a turning point. I realized that if I wanted to live differently, I had to wake up differently. And so I made a decision: no more mindless mornings. I would wake up with intention. Waking up with intention doesn't mean just getting out of bed earlier. It means getting out of bed with purpose. It means deciding that before the world asks anything of me, I will decide who I am, how I will show up, and what my day will mean. This one shift completely changed the energy of my mornings. Instead of being reactive, I became proactive. Instead of starting the day with stress, I started with clarity. The first habit I built was to stop reaching for my phone. It was hard at first because it had become such a reflex. But I replaced it with a different ritual. The moment my feet touched the floor, I would take 3 deep breaths. Slow, deep, intentional breaths. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But those 3 breaths reminded me that I am alive, that I have another day to try, to grow, to become better than I was yesterday. After breathing, I spent a few minutes just thinking, not scrolling, not consuming, just thinking about my life, my goal, and what kind of person I wanted to be that day. Was I going to be patient or impatient? Was I going to let stress control me? Or was I going to stay calm under pressure? This mental rehearsal was powerful because it set my mindset before the chaos of the day could touch me. Once my mind was clear, I moved my body. Not a full workout necessarily. Sometimes just a stretch, sometimes push-ups, sometimes a short walk. The point was not intensity, it was consistency. Moving my body first thing in the morning told my brain, we are awake, we are alive, we are ready. And that physical energy carried into everything else I did. Then I started asking myself better questions. What is the most important thing I need to do today? Who do I need to help? How do I want to feel at the end of the day when my head hits the pillow? These questions gave my day direction. They made me feel like I was building something instead of just surviving. Slowly, this morning ritual became the foundation of my growth. My thoughts became sharper. My energy became steady, and I started to notice opportunities I used to miss because I was too tired or distracted. People around me noticed the difference too. I was calmer, more focused, and more confident, not because my life got easier, but because I started my day with intention instead of chaos. For a long time, I thought complaining was harmless. It felt like a release, a way to get my frustration out, to tell the world that something wasn't fair. I complained about traffic, about people, about opportunities I didn't have, about the economy, about my past, even about my own mistakes. I didn't realize it at the time, but every complaint was secretly programming my mind to see myself as powerless. Each time I complained, I was reinforcing the belief that life was happening to me instead of for me. One day I caught myself complaining to a friend about something small. I don't even remember what it was. And as I heard my own words, I realized I sounded like a victim. It hit me hard. I thought, if all I do is talk about problems, when do I actually solve them? That moment was uncomfortable, but it changed me. I made a decision that from that day forward, I would stop complaining. Not just with my words, but in my thoughts too. The first thing I noticed when I stopped complaining was how often I used to do it. It was automatic. Something small would go wrong, and my mouth would open before my brain even processed it. So I trained myself to pause. Every time I felt the urge to complain, I asked myself one question: what can I do about this? If the answer was nothing, then complaining wouldn't change it anyway. So I let it go. If the answer was something, then I focused on the solution instead of the problem. This habit transformed my energy. Complaining had been draining me without me realizing it. Every time I complained, I was reliving the negative emotion. By breaking that habit, I freed my mind from repeating the same negative loop over and over again. Suddenly, I had more mental energy to think, to plan, to take action. I stopped waiting for perfect circumstances and started looking for ways to improve my circumstances. People began to notice the difference. When you stop complaining, you stop spreading negativity, and people feel that energy. Conversations with me became lighter, more meaningful, more focused on solutions. I stopped being the person who dragged others down with constant problems, and instead became the person who asked good questions, who encouraged, who looked for possibilities. That shift changed my relationships. People respected my words more because I wasn't always filling the air with noise. And the truth is, complaining keeps you blind to opportunities. When all you see is what's wrong, you miss what's right. When you complain about traffic, you don't notice that you have time to listen to a podcast or reflect on your goals. When you complain about your job, you miss the skills you're building that might lead to your next opportunity. When you complain about people, you miss the chance to learn patience or to set boundaries. Stopping my habit of complaining also taught me responsibility. It's easy to say, this is someone else's fault. It's hard to say, what can I do to fix this? But that hard question gave me power. If I could do something, anything, to make the situation better, then I was no longer helpless. Even if all I could control was my reaction, that was enough to shift the direction of my day. This simple habit of refusing to complain didn't just change my words. It changed the way I saw life. Problems didn't shrink, but my ability to face them grew. And as my perspective grew, my confidence grew with it, because I started to believe that no matter what happened, I could handle it. When I first heard successful people say, read every day, I thought it was just another cliche. I thought reading was something you did only when you had time or when school forced you to. But then I realized something. The most successful, disciplined, and wise people I admired were not just lucky or gifted, they were readers. They were students of life. They treated learning as a daily habit, not a one-time event. That realization woke me up. So I made a simple commitment to myself. No matter how busy I would read every single day. Not just motivational quotes, but real books. Books that challenged me. Books that taught me new ways to think. Books that opened doors to worlds I never knew existed. In the beginning, it was hard to be consistent. I would get distracted, my mind would wander, and some days I didn't feel like reading at all. But I reminded myself that this wasn't about speed or finishing books quickly. It was about building the habit of feeding my mind with something that would make me grow. The impact was powerful. I began to notice how my thinking started to change. Books introduced me to mentors I had never met, to lessons I had never been taught, and to solutions I didn't know were possible. Every chapter I read gave me a new tool, a new perspective, a new story that inspired me to keep pushing forward. And the best part, reading is quiet but life-changing. No one can take away what you learn. No one can stop you from growing once you make it a part of your life. Reading also made me more confident. It gave me language to express my ideas, wisdom to face challenges, and strategies to improve my life. When problems came, instead of feeling lost, I remembered something I had read that helped me see the problem differently. I no longer relied only on my own experience, because through books, I could borrow the experience of people who had already walked the path. That gave me an advantage most people don't use. The advantage of learning from others' mistakes without having to make them myself. But I also realized something else. Feeding the mind is not enough if you neglect the body. Your mind can have big dreams, but if your body is too tired or too weak to follow through, those dreams stay trapped in your head. That is why I decided to build the habit of moving my body every day, even when I didn't feel like it. At first, I thought exercise was only for people who wanted perfect abs or to look good on the beach. But I learned that exercise is much deeper than that. Exercise is a mental battle before it is a physical one. It is a daily reminder that I can do hard things. It is me proving to myself that my excuses are not stronger than my willpower. Some mornings I wanted to skip it. I told myself I was too busy, too tired, too stressed. But those were the mornings that mattered the most, because pushing myself when I didn't feel like it built a kind of strength that nothing else could. Every time I finished a workout I didn't want to start, I felt unstoppable. That feeling carried into my work, my relationships, and my mindset. And it didn't have to be perfect. Some days it was a full workout, other days it was a short walk, a stretch, a set of push-ups, or a quick run. The goal was not to impress anyone, it was to keep a promise to myself. That promise built trust in myself. And when you trust yourself, you stop doubting whether you can handle challenges. You know you can because you've been training for it every single day. Exercise also sharpened my focus. I noticed I could think clearer, handle stress better, and stay disciplined in other areas of life. When your body is energized, your mind has more power to stay productive and creative. That's why I say this habit is not just about fitness. It is about building the strength and resilience you need to chase your dreams. The combination of feeding my mind with books and strengthening my body through movement completely changed how I approached life. My thoughts became sharper, my energy became consistent, and my confidence started to grow quietly, one page and one workout at a time. There was a time when I thought comfort was the goal. I thought the whole point of working hard was to get to a place where life was easier, smoother, and less stressful. But I learned something that completely changed me. Comfort can be the biggest trap. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it slowly kills your potential. The truth is, nothing great grows in the comfort zone. When I look back at my life, I realized that every meaningful breakthrough I had ever experienced came from doing something that scared me, something that stretched me, something that made me uncomfortable. That realization was painful because it forced me to face all the opportunities I had avoided in the past just because they were uncomfortable. The presentation I didn't volunteer for because I was scared of speaking. The conversation I didn't have because I didn't want conflict. The skill I didn't learn because I was afraid of looking foolish as a beginner. All of those missed opportunities were moments where I chose comfort over growth. And every time I chose comfort, I stayed the same. So I made a decision I would start choosing growth even when it was scary. Especially when it was scary. When fear showed up, I began to see it not as a warning sign to stop, but as a compass pointing toward where I needed to go. If something made me nervous, that meant it had the power to change me, and that was exactly why I had to do it. The first time I stepped into that mindset, it was uncomfortable, almost painful. My hands would sweat, my heart would race, my mind would come up with every excuse to stay where I was. But once I pushed through the discomfort, once I did the thing I was afraid to do, I felt something powerful. Growth, confidence, a deep sense of pride that I didn't back down. That feeling was addictive. I started to seek out situations that stretched me. I volunteered to lead projects I normally would have avoided. I had honest conversations I had been putting off. I said yes to opportunities that forced me to level up. And every time I did, I became a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more resilient. Over time, the things that once scared me became normal, and that is when I realized something beautiful. Growth makes discomfort temporary, but comfort makes regret permanent. But here's what I discovered along the way. You cannot choose growth if your life is constantly full of noise and distractions. Growth requires focus, and focus requires protecting your time. For most of my life, I said yes to everything. Yes to every favor, yes to every invitation, yes to every request that came my way. I didn't want to disappoint people, but in saying yes to everyone else, I was saying no to myself, no to my goals, and no to my own future. So I started protecting my time like it was treasure, because it is. Time is life. Once it's gone, you can't get it back. And if you don't decide how to spend it, someone else will. That realization hit me hard. I started looking at how I was spending my days. How much time was I wasting scrolling on my phone, watching things that didn't make me better, or saying yes to events that didn't align with where I wanted to go? When I saw how much of my life was being drained away by things that didn't matter, I made a bold choice. I would no longer allow everyone to have access to my time. That meant saying no more often. At first, it was uncomfortable. I worried about disappointing people. But I learned that saying no to the wrong things is actually saying yes to the right things. Yes to my growth. Yes to my dreams. Yes to the version of me I am working to become. By guarding my time, I created space for deep work, for learning, for rest, for building the habits that actually move me forward. The more I protected my time, the more powerful I felt. I no longer felt pulled in 100 directions. I started each day with a clear plan, focusing on what truly mattered instead of reacting to whatever came my way. My productivity soared, my stress went down, and I felt in control of my life in a way I never had before. Choosing growth over comfort and protecting my time were like two sides of the same coin. Growth required me to step out of my comfort zone, and protecting my time gave me the focus and energy to keep growing. Together, these two habits created a momentum in my life that nothing could stop. One of the most life-changing habits I ever built was writing my goals every single day. At first, I thought it sounded unnecessary. Why write them every day if I already know what they are? But I quickly discovered something powerful. When you write your goals daily, you keep them alive. They stop being distant wishes floating in your mind and become clear, focused instructions to your brain about where you're heading. When I first started, I didn't write anything fancy. I just grabbed a notebook every morning and wrote what I wanted for my life. Not just what I wanted to accomplish, but who I wanted to become, how I wanted to feel, what kind of person I wanted people to remember me as. Some days my goals were big and ambitious. Other days they were simple and practical. The point was never perfection, it was connection. I was reminding myself every single day what I was working for, what direction I was running in, and why it mattered to me. This habit gave me clarity like nothing else ever had. Before, I would wake up and just react to whatever the day threw at me. But when I wrote my goals, I started every day with a sense of direction. I no longer felt lost because I had already decided what my priorities were. And the crazy thing, writing them down made them feel real, almost inevitable. There is something about seeing your dreams on paper that tells your brain, this is not just a hope, this is happening. Over time, this habit started to shape my decisions in ways I didn't expect. If an opportunity came my way, I could quickly ask myself, does this get me closer to my goals or farther away? That question saved me from wasting months, even years, on things that didn't align with where I wanted to go. And even on hard days, when I felt tired or unmotivated, I would open my notebook, read my goals, and suddenly I remembered why I couldn't quit. Writing them daily kept my motivation alive even when life tried to knock me down. But I discovered something else on this journey. No matter how clear your goals are, no matter how hard you work, if you spend your time around the wrong people, they will pull you away from the life you're trying to build. I realized that the people around me were either my fuel or my anchor. Some inspired me, pushed me, challenged me to think bigger, while others drained me, filled me with negativity, and made me question whether my dreams were even possible. So I made a hard but necessary choice. I started being intentional about who I spent time with. It wasn't easy, because some of the people I had to distance myself from were people I cared about. But I had to be honest with myself. If someone's energy was always negative, if they always had excuses instead of solutions, if they made me feel small every time I shared a dream, then I couldn't keep giving them unlimited access to my life. At the same time, I went looking for people who inspired me. Sometimes that meant mentors I met in real life. Other times it meant books, podcasts, videos, and communities where people were chasing similar goals. I surrounded myself with voices that made me believe I could do more, be more, and give more. I started learning from people who were ahead of me, asking questions, watching how they thought, how they made decisions, how they handled challenges. Slowly, my environment changed. My conversations became deeper, my standards got higher, and my vision got clearer. Being around the right people didn't just motivate me, it stretched me. They held me accountable, reminded me of who I said I wanted to become, and wouldn't let me settle for less than my potential. And here's the truth, your goals grow in the soil of your environment. You can write them every day, but if you keep planting them in toxic ground, surrounded by negativity, excuses, and small thinking, they won't flourish. But if you put them in fertile ground, surrounded by inspiration, discipline, and belief, they will grow faster than you ever imagined. These two habits, writing my goals daily and surrounding myself with people who lifted me up, worked together to create a force inside me that felt unstoppable. One gave me clarity, the other gave me courage. One reminded me of where I was going. The other reminded me that I wasn't alone on the journey. For years, I thought I would finally feel happy when life got better. When I earned more money, when I achieved my goals, when I had fewer problems. But the truth is, there will always be challenges, and if you wait for everything to be perfect before you allow yourself to feel grateful, you will spend most of your life feeling empty. Gratitude is not about waiting for the big victories. Gratitude is about noticing the small blessings that are already here and training your mind to see them even when life feels heavy. The first time I made gratitude a daily habit, I was surprised by how powerful it was. Every morning, before I let the noise of the world in, I would write down 3 things I was thankful for. Some days they were big things, opportunities I had prayed for, breakthroughs I had worked hard for. But most days they were small, ordinary moments. A conversation with a friend that made me laugh, the fact that I had food to eat, the simple gift of waking up healthy and having another chance to try again. At first, it felt too simple to matter. How could writing 3 small things change anything? But slowly, I noticed something happening in my mind. I stopped obsessing over what was missing and started seeing what was already good. Even on difficult days, I could find something to be thankful for. A lesson I learned, a bit of strength I didn't know I had, a chance to grow through the pain. Gratitude didn't erase the problems, but it changed the way I faced them. It turned my mindset from why me into thank you for the opportunity to get stronger. And when your mind learns to look for blessings, you stop feeling powerless. You start seeing that even in your hardest moments, there is something you can use, something you can build on. Gratitude gave me peace in the middle of storms and hope on the days when nothing was going my way. It shifted my focus from complaining to appreciating, from fear to faith, from frustration to determination. But gratitude alone is not enough. Gratitude gives you the right perspective, but consistency gives you results. There is a hard truth most people don't want to hear. Success is not always exciting. In fact, most of the time it's boring. It's showing up day after day, doing the same small actions that no one notices, and staying disciplined even when you don't see immediate progress. For a long time, I struggled with this. I wanted fast results. I wanted the big transformation right away. When I didn't see changes quickly, I would lose motivation and stop. But I learned that growth is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The people who win are not always the smartest or the most talented. They are the ones who refuse to quit when it gets boring. I decided I would become one of those people. I made a promise to myself that I would keep doing the right things. Even when it felt slow, even when it felt repetitive, even when no one was cheering for me. Some mornings I woke up and didn't want to work out, but I did it anyway. Some days I didn't want to read, but I picked up the book anyway. Some nights I didn't feel like writing my goals, but I opened the notebook anyway. And little by little, I started to notice something powerful. Consistency was building my identity. Every time I kept going when I didn't feel like it, I proved to myself that I could be trusted. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. You no longer rely on motivation, because motivation comes and goes. You rely on discipline, and discipline builds momentum. The results didn't come overnight, but one day I looked back and realized how far I had come, and that all those small, boring, repetitive actions had turned into something extraordinary. Consistency also built resilience. Life will always throw challenges, distractions, and setbacks your way, but when you have the habit of showing up every day, you keep moving forward, no matter what happens. That habit becomes your shield against discouragement and your weapon against procrastination. Gratitude gave me the right attitude. Consistency turned that attitude into results. Together, they created a quiet but powerful force in my life, a force that pushed me through the hard days and kept me grounded on the good ones. You see, none of these habits are complicated. Waking up with intention, refusing to complain, reading, moving your body, choosing growth over comfort, protecting your time, writing your goals, surrounding yourself with the right people, practicing gratitude, and staying consistent. They are simple, but simple does not mean easy. Most people know what to do. The difference between those who stay the same and those who transform their lives is the courage to actually do it every single day. When I look back now, my life is unrecognizable. Not because something magical happened overnight, but because I made a decision to change one habit at a time until those habits changed me. That is the power you have right now. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You don't have to wait until everything in your life is lined up just right. You You can start today. Start with one habit. Start small, messy if you must. But start, because the day you decide to take control of your mornings, your mindset, your energy, your focus, and your time, that is the day your life begins to move in a new direction. And when you stay consistent, when you keep going through the discomfort, when you choose gratitude over negativity and growth over excuses, one day you will wake up and realize you've become a completely different person. The kind of person who inspires others, who sets an example, who lives a life worth remembering. So today I challenge you, choose just one of these habits and begin. Watch how it shifts your day, then your week, then your year. And before you know it, you'll look back and say the same thing I do now, my life is unrecognizable. And I built it one habit at a time.